Well, hello everybody and welcome back to a quick garden update between the storms today. Yeah, kind of missed last week, but you know, it's a garden, not a lot happens from week to week. This week, however, I wanted to be sure I got an update up because things have changed. Things are looking good and yeah, I wanted to share. So, let's get started before the rain starts pounding down again. It has been some wonderful weather, but yeah, not terribly conducive to doing outdoor videos, you know? All right, so we're by the chicken coop to start today with my little, well, individual sort of sister's companion gardening project. I've got a little planter here with just a couple of things in it, so yeah, let's start there. So this poor little recycled planter here has been through a few different households, ended up in the chicken coop for a while. As you can see, there's a fair bit of damage around there, but we've got the one and only pea that seems to be growing on the property here. Seems to be attaching itself to the bean. One very lonely corn stalk. Not the best looking corn stalk around by any means, but probably the tallest of the popcorns. We've got the bean that's doing all right, and you can barely see them, but we've got 5 little plantings of parsley that are popping up, and I'm thinking I definitely forgot to plant that squash there, but that does happen. So as far as this little project goes, it seems to be working. Not really expecting much from the corn, but I'm really glad to see that pea because it's the only one growing. Interesting that. And then basically next to that we've got this hugel garden slash swale garden that we built to kind of catch some runoff that no longer seems to be an issue. Garden, or the yard I should say, seems to be absorbing a little bit more water than when we first got here. So that's kind of a good thing. So I have to water this more often than we had initially planned, but previously I had mixed some dirt to attempt to make soil that was basically far too hot for anything to sprout. But over the last little while, we've had a few things pop up. I'm thinking that's one of the radish types that's in here. That could be another type that's in there. I also planted some rutabagas in here. So I'm thinking some of these sprouts might actually be from those. And then that grass type thing you'll see, and that one, and that one, and these ones here. These are in fact popcorn. Actually, I guess this one's probably the nicest popcorn. I misspoke earlier. So I've kind of got my circle going. A few of them have been taken out by various bugs. These things do happen. And it does look like I finally got a couple of bean sprouts coming up. So even though this mixture should have been too hot, I've got some sturdier type things that are gonna give it a go anyway. Unfortunately, none of the cucumbers made it up in either of my 2 little plantings, and none of the peas sprouted, which really interests me because I kind of thought they were like ridiculously sturdy and could grow in almost anything, but apparently not. So yes, moving on from here to something ridiculously successful perhaps. How about them taters, eh? That's not bad. I mean, this is another case of we really can't see the corn in here anymore, so I've given up completely on getting anything out of that. Can't really see the beans in here anymore either. I mean, they're in here somewhere, but I haven't been able to find them the last couple times I've looked. I have been building this up with more lawn clippings as we go to add some moisture, to retain some moisture, to add some, we'll call it a soil depth, but I mean it's not, is it? Got a few thistles coming up, so I'm going to have to get rid of those. Took a whole 5-gallon bucket of thistles out of the tomato garden this week, so that'll be a little easier to see the tomato plants in a second. But look at the height on these things, that's crazy. And I've added, I want to say, well, a hand worth of grass to the top of that. Put in a little bit of that chicken improved sawdust, a little bit of the chicken compost from out front. Didn't mix this anywhere near as much as I thought I should have, and yet this is going to be so much fun to go through in the fall. I'm going to keep building it up though, and I don't know, just see how many taters we can get out of it. I've got $20 invested in this thing in seed taters, and otherwise it's just growing in, well, free resources, right? Straw from the back field, tater flowers kind of starting on there. I think when all of the tater flowers have bloomed and died, then it's time to start harvesting. I'm not sure, maybe one of you more experienced potato growers can let me know about that. But moving just south of that here, we've got the corn and squash bed. This, I'm really pleased by this. Now this is sweet corn that I've got growing here, as compared to the popcorn we've seen before. Look how nice and broad these leaves are, and there are so many of them. Giving corn space has definitely made all the difference in the world. I mean, this one here is almost bigger than some of the ones we had growing last year, but at the same time, they were growing almost this close together last year. And where this one thistle has grown, this one corn really has not. So definitely says something about giving them room. Now, we still have the issue of wind pollination, so because these aren't planted in a block, will I get cobs out of them at all? And of course the big question of, as Brother Troll pointed out, modern corn is bred for production, so basically is bred to get one cob off each. Easier to harvest that way. Everything ripens more consistently that way, and I understand the industrial farming perspective of that. So I think in future years, I'm going to have to start looking for open pollinated heritage type seeds, and that way I can start saving some of my own and seeking higher goals with this stuff. But this one exposed row of corn seems to be doing pretty darn well. And looking at them, I wanted to say melon, but you know what? I think this would be the spaghetti squash mound. This is, I don't know, I think it's doing pretty nicely. I mean, we're almost at June, but it's been a really weird weather year, so it's hard to say. Will I get any production? I don't know. It's all part of the game, really. And the beans in the middle here, doing just fabulous. And those would be the pumpkins at the back. Again, some really lovely growth on the plants. I'm very excited, very hopeful, because these are the sugar pie pumpkins. So basically, you roast one pumpkin, you've got yourself one pie or two loaves. Works quite well. Here we can sort of see the corn that I've bunkered in a little bit better. I try and use all of the grass clippings that I get around here in one way or another. A lot of it goes into mulch. I firmly believe it helps with moisture retention and feeds the worms. And I gotta say, as I was digging this stuff up this year, there was a huge worm population, so I don't think I'm wrong about that. Let's pan over to the tomato bed. Still a little crazy. Got some chicken food I've got to pull away from the tomatoes here, but if you look in the middle, you can see a nice looking tomato plant, all things considered. And I really didn't do much for these as far as transplanting them up and giving them a better start, really. And I have let the weeds grow a little too wild in here, but I am, all in all, quite pleased with how these things seem to be doing. So it's going to be quite interesting. There are a few places where the birds and or neighborhood cats and critters have helped me, we'll say lose a few. But at the same time, there are some others that are doing particularly well. This would be one of the broad ripples, I believe. Looks very nice. I love the leaves on that one. For the most part, we've got a larger type of tomato growing than, I would generally prefer. I've stated in the past years that I think cherry tomatoes and such types do better here. But this could be a good year again for seed saving, because if I can get some of these to produce, and then I save the seeds from the ones that produce first, or at least early, then I got a better chance of getting nice big tomatoes growing in this strange Manitoba environment. So yeah, step by step we win the war, right? So yeah, I still got some weeding to do here, but all in all, this is one heck of a tomato patch. Taking a look over here at the pineberry. I saw lots of flowers and lots of berry starts, but never saw any actual berries. We still got more flowers on here. So at the very least, these will be attracting pollinators for us, and that is a good thing. But I think I'm going to have to look into new strawberry varieties to kind of enhance this row here. Chaos Garden is just growing insane. This grass is so tall. It's over my belly button in some of these places. Unfortunately, we lost the tomato that I planted in here. Some bird cut it off, or I guess one of those, what are they, hornworms, cutworms? Something came along and nibbled it off and ended that game. Looks like something's been digging in here too. Well, well, well. More and more critters to make the gardening here more and more interesting. The carrot patch, clearly not planted. We may have a tiller on the way, so I'm just going to mix all that in and add some carbon to the soil, let it do its thing. Hopefully the soil biology will break it down, make for nice fertile soil for next year when I plant, I don't know, probably carrots in here. But I still think from time to time, you know, this is about the right size to cover with that cabbage moth cloth. So that might be a good idea too. Anywho, I'm hearing more and more rumblings from the clouds and the weather up above, so that's probably my cue that it's time to go inside before this here camera does get itself rained on. I don't need that. Not necessarily in a position to replace this. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this quick update looking around at the yard and gardens, and I don't know if you got any advice for me. I would love to hear it in the comments below. So otherwise, much love, and hopefully I'll be back again next Sunday. Take care, everybody.